A Fort Hall woman has nighttime Sasquatch encounter at a canal near Blackfoot. Bigfoot may be using canals, creeks, and rivers to travel at night. Stephanie writes RMSO. I once had a Bigfoot encounter way back in September 1991. My name is Stephanie, afraid of bear. I live on the Fort Hall Indian Reservation that is between Pocatello and Blackfoot. Seeing or hearing Bigfoot in our area is fairly common. As a matter of fact, I may have had a couple more near experiences in later years, but first encounter has always struck the most. I actually told Renee of finding Bigfoot about it once when they came to Pocatello. She even went out to look at the area I told her about. It happened just south of Blackfoot. It was probably around 1 or 2 a.m. I got stranded in Blackfoot after the fairgrounds closed down. My ride home left me behind, so I had to walk around for a hotel. Thankfully, I had enough to get a room, but unfortunately, all the hotels were booked. I had two alternatives: spend the night in the park or just walk to Fort Hall, which is about 10 miles south of Blackfoot. I had no way of calling anyone because I didn't think anyone would answer their phone that late, much less come 10-15 miles to get me. I was 18 at the time, so technically an adult. I decided to walk home. I decided to walk on the railroad tracks that ran along Highway 91. But after a while, I started to get tired. It had been a long night already. I made it as far as this small canal that passed under the tracks and highway. Just before it crosses the road was an old radio station, so there was plenty of light. I sat on the concrete railing to rest. There was a moon out, and I could see the water moving. Then I saw this odd shape in the water. At first, I thought it was a large piece of trash. I had to cough, and it stopped. Then it slowly, really slowly, started to move against the stream in the opposite direction. I remember saying, "What the hell is that?" I got this creepy feeling and immediately walked away. I continued on, but I started to get a leg cramp. I probably got about 400 or 500 feet, so it wasn't far, before I had to sit down again. I was pretty much past the radio station. There was a couple events that happened while I was there. First was when I hear a couple, a man and a woman, talking. They were walking on the highway. They turned off and went down a dirt road I had crossed right after the canal. I could hear them talking for a while before their voices faded away. Second, I heard someone else coming. It sounded like two men arguing. But when he got into the light of the radio station, he was by himself. I kind of just stayed still, hoping he would not notice me sitting there. But as he passed in front of me, I heard something cross over the dirt road. I could hear footsteps, and then it walked into the weeds. I looked back in that direction, thinking I may have to make a run for the highway and to the road station and hope someone was there. But what stopped me was that I saw something really huge walking in the weeds. I looked straight ahead really quick. When I did, it stopped. I slowly turned my head. I was so scared, but I wanted to see it. My heart was pounding so hard. I could see it leaning over to the side like it was trying to take a look at me. Then it slowly started to walk again. As it passed behind me, I could hear it breathing. I watched it from the corner of my eye as far as I could before I forced myself to turn and head the other way. It would stop and look at me, like he was leaning towards me. Even as it walked on, it kept looking back at me. I don't remember smelling anything. It might have been because there was a breeze, but it was blowing from the west, so that made it upwind of me. I think maybe it smelled me. I had worn body spray and I usually sprayed it all over my body, and then I was sweating as well. As soon as I saw it coming, I think I stopped breathing. I remember taking a deep breath before I finally got myself to move. I often wonder if what I saw in the water, that odd shape, was his head and he was crawling around in the canal. Around 2 years later, I was walking along another canal near my parents' house. Again, it was late at night. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to take a late night stroll. This canal is now covered up, and they made it into a really nice walkway with street lights and benches along the path, so it don't look the way it did back then. Anyways, I was walking along, and I heard the weeds rustling down the small canal. It was dark, so I thought maybe a dog or a cat. When I turned around, it stopped. After the third time, I slapped my hands and yelled at it to go away. When I turned to start walking again, All I heard was this low guttural sound, like it was doing the same thing back at me. I didn't even look back. I quickly walked down the embankment and climbed over the high fence. There is a video I keep seeing every now and then of a man chasing after some big feet. He's yelling at his family to get inside while he's running into the woods. That guttural sound at the beginning, that's the exact sound I heard. Every time I watch that video, it triggers that memory. RMSO responds, "Hi, Stephanie. Were you able to estimate the height or width of the creature near the canal? And were you able to determine its color or could tell if it was covered in hair?" Stephanie continues, "Height? Considering that I was sitting on the railroad tracks and the tracks sit higher than the highway and the area behind it slopes down pretty far, it had to have been pretty tall. When it was directly behind me, it was pretty high. I have a son that stood 6 foot. This being looked to be a little taller than him. Its color? I would have to say black, but it was dark. It could have been dark brown or brown. The light from the radio station was one of those orangish lights back then. He looked pretty hairy from where I was sitting. I could see hair on his arms and legs. He didn't swing his arms much, though. As soon as he saw me, he stopped. His arms just stayed at his sides. Its arms were long. To me, they were freakishly long. I've never seen arms that long before. If you would like a picture of the area, I can go take a few shots and send to you." The tree in my drawing was significant for some time because it was directly behind me, and when he passed behind me, I could see that he stood almost as tall as that tree. The tree has since grown since then. RMSO continues, "We found the old radio station, and it's situated near a small canal. The arch-lateral canal is fed by the North Corral, and not far from that point, the North Canal is fed by the Blackfoot River. Appears this Sasquatch that Stephanie saw uses the rivers and canals as a travel route at nights. And this area is just full of farm fields, and so the Bigfoot may be after the animals that like to feed on what's growing in the farm fields, or it may be after the grains, vegetables, and corn that grows in the area. Either way, there is food all over the area, and if it's using the waterways, there's going to be fish, frogs, and other things that like the water. I hope you guys enjoyed this Blackfoot Bigfoot sighting reports. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.